With the launch of the Steam Deck a few years back, interest in handheld PCs, especially handheld gaming PCs, basically reignited out of nowhere, and now we have a lot of devices to choose from. Things like the Asus ROG Ally, Lenovo Legion, a bunch of devices from Aya Neo, GPD Win 4, and as the Steam Deck is technically powered by Arch Linux, by the way, SteamOS is based on Arch, interest in either running Linux on these Windows handhelds or creating new devices specifically as a Linux device. For example, the Orange Pi Neo powered by Manjaro. But that is not the only one. We're also seeing mockups from companies like Playtron. Now, if you showed this to me and it wasn't published on The Verge or another reputable tech outlet, I would look at this and think, do you remember those, like, Xbox 720, PlayStation 7 videos you'd see in the early days of YouTube? That's what this looks like, along with somewhat more real-looking devices like the SuiPlay Zero X1 from Mist and Labs, which frankly is a god-awful name, and it's targeted at people that simply don't exist. Web3 crypto gaming people. The problem with Web3 gaming isn't the Web3 crypto nonsense. It's the people making the games don't know what they should be focusing on. They aren't focusing on making a game. They are focusing on making a Web3 game. These games have a very short life cycle because once people realize that there is no fun game here, the only people playing it are people where their local currency is worth less than RuneScape gold. If we look at another game that's designed to take all of your money, Genshin Impact, this is an infinite money pit. This is a slot machine targeted at children. However, it's a slot machine that has a fun gameplay loop attached to it because they tried to make a game and then they thought, how do we take all of your money? They didn't go the other way around. Also, it has very cute JPEGs, and that's obviously the most important thing. That's what's going to get you lots of money. Please correct me if I'm wrong here, but to the best of my knowledge, there is yet to be a single crypto Web3 game that actually appeals to normal people that actually just want to play a video game and aren't trying to find some new investment opportunity to make the new big thing that's going to make them suddenly rich, or, again, are people in a country where their currency is so terrible, they are trying anything they can do to make any amount of money. Now, I don't want this video to focus on some random handheld. Instead, I want to talk about the OS powering it. So Mist and Labs is an investor in Playtron, the same Playtron we mentioned earlier. Now, Playtron also has an OS called Playtron OS. Now, you may have heard a bit about this recently when you heard about Square Enix investing in some handheld gaming operating system. Now, It's FOSS did an article about this, and for whatever reason, referenced an article from Gaming on Linux and used Liam's government name instead of saying Gaming on Linux. I don't know why, it's just a funny thing to point out. This is a Linux-based operating system. Now, like all projects, especially those from a company, it needs a really dumb comparison chart where it's structured in a way that makes it seem like everything about the competitors absolutely sucks. So, SteamOS, only Steam supported out of the box. Technically correct. Out of the box, only Steam is installed. Only supports Steam Deck. Yes, there is HoloISO, but that's not directly from Valve. So yes, technically, SteamOS only supports Steam Deck. Windows, monolithic OS built for productivity software, not games. Technically correct. Not optimized for mass market consumer gaming. Technically correct. Playtron OS natively supports many different game stores out of the box. I'll talk about how in just a moment. Supports many different handheld devices and PCs designed for an optimal gaming experience. Now, I would disagree on the state of Linux as optimal gaming experience, fairly good, but there are still a lot of games out there that don't play nicely. Now, this is the updated version of the chart after a lot of people got really angry for what they had written here beforehand. Let's see the archive. SteamOS, compatible with Steam only. No. Completely inaccurate. Locked to the Valveverse, a term that nobody has ever used before. Also, not true. Is not locked to anything. You can install Windows on it if you want to. You can install a different distro. You can install all of the same software that is available on Playtron OS. Putting the blatant lies aside, I'm not entirely sure why they changed the first entry in the Windows category. Monolithic OS meant for desktop PCs, not handhelds. What I read before was Monolithic OS built for productivity software, not games. This is still true. I don't entirely know what the point of the change was. They also changed everything in the Playtron OS category as well, because, you know, if you say compatible with Steam only, you can't really say Linux-based gaming OS compatible with every game store. Also, not entirely true. Every game store is a pretty wild statement. Now, regarding that store support, this isn't just being magicked out of thin air or coming up with their own solution, completely disregarding things that already exist. This is using software that you've probably already worked with. Things like Luchus, Heroic Games Launcher, and a bunch of other things. Now, Chimera OS might seem like a really weird addition here because Chimera OS is its own, like, whole distro, but they do have a couple of things like a GameScope fork they manage and other little things like that, which is what is being mentioned here. Now, they're not just using this software and just being done with it. They're actually going out of their way to hire people from the Linux ecosystem, giving them a job, working directly on these projects, trying to improve them, and not making it so they're having their own, like, weird internal fork. Maybe they will do additional things themselves, but actually getting these people paid working on the open source project. There is one of these projects in particular that's gotten a bit of flack about this, and we'll talk about that a bit more in just a bit. Before then, though, I want to talk about what this project actually is as a distro. Firstly, the project is based on Fedora Silverblue, making it an atomic distro. Now, in the case of a desktop system, I think there is a lot of argument to be made about not using atomic systems, but when it comes to these handhelds, especially handhelds that are marketed towards non-Linux people, I think there is a lot of value in doing this atomic approach. It's worked really well on the Steam Deck, it's working really well for projects like uBlue Bazet, and honestly, I don't see a reason to diverge from that and go back to a more package-based approach. With Alpha 1 being based on Fedora 40, which makes sense, there's nothing too surprising there. Fedora 41 is probably going to be out by the time that this project releases, but you're not going to build something off of the version that is still a preview. It makes more sense to go with a thing that is still tested and, like, you know is done. Regarding device support, it's not been tested on every single one of the handhelds, but of the ones you would expect, yeah, it currently works on those, along with the SUI Play 0x1 or whatever it was called that hasn't yet been released. Now, the weirdest question here is, does Playtron run Linux games? Now, the logical part of your brain is going to say, okay, so it's a distro based on Fedora Silverblue. And that's all the thinking you need to do. The answer would be yes, but the answer is even stranger. Currently, Playtron OS only runs Windows games using Wine. Native Linux games will be supported in the future. What? How have you managed that? Genuinely, honest question. Unless it is such a modified version of Silverblue that it doesn't include sensible libraries, but at that point, like, everything else would have trouble actually running. Like, what? What do you mean native Linux game will be supported in the future? How are they not supported now? That part's just weird, but this next part kind of brings some fairly valid criticism of what Playtron is doing. What does Playtron have to do with crypto? Playtron is backed by a handful of crypto companies. So when they say handful of crypto companies, let's have a look at that investor list again. Samsung Next, crypto-related. Polychain Capital, crypto-related. Alumni Ventures, crypto-related. Circle, literally a crypto. All of these here, including Square Enix, have some interest, are a venture capital firm, are literally a crypto token, are in some form related to crypto. You might not remember the Square Enix stuff. They sold off a ton of their IPs to spend it on NFTs. Don't think about it. Now, the problem is most people stop reading there and don't read the rest of the sentence. If game developers believe blockchain features can improve their games, we are all for it. The use of these technologies will be optional. This part, very, very important. A lot of people don't read it. A lot of people just read the first part and freak out because, oh my god, it's a Linux distro that's going to have crypto in it. Arch Linux can have crypto in it. Every distro can have crypto in it. Yes, this is funded by crypto companies, and yes, they want you to use the crypto features, but the use is optional. What integration does Playtron have with Sui? Sui Wallet will be available to make purchases with. Web 2 and Web 3 games will be available to download and play. Web 2 and Web 3 game. So Web 2 just means regular browser-based games. Web 3 means browser-based games with crypto nonsense, for anyone who doesn't understand the crypto terminology. Even with it being optional, I do think there's a lot of valid criticism with the whole Web 3 crypto nonsense integration, having first-party support for some random wallet, and yeah, obviously that is weird, and I totally get why that might turn people off from the project and want absolutely nothing to do with it. However, I will not say no to them hiring on developers to work on some really great FOSS projects that, frankly, are fairly underfunded. Like, the Lutris project, ever since 2020, has been dropping in funding because projects like Bottles exist now. There's a lot more competition in this space. If you can take their money and work on these projects and actually be able to improve them and spend a lot more time on them and actually contribute things back into the open source project, honestly, this is a win for everyone. The crypto company gets their crypto nonsense device and lets them do all of that stuff. We, as regular people, get better open source software that has developers that are being paid, that actually have the ability to live their lives rather than making very little amounts here and there. Because look, I know there's some people out there that have this magical idea that, oh, there was a time where people in the FOSS world just worked for free, nobody made money, it was great back then. Yes, people didn't make a lot of money in the early days of Linux. It wasn't great, because what you ended up having happen is people would work on FOSS software in high school, in college, and then they finish college, and then they need to get a job, and so many great developers have to leave this space because they just don't have the ability to keep it financially stable. If you have a way to do that, I can't criticize you for doing so. So recently, Matthew Commandon of the Lutris project put out a post regarding his involvement in Playtron, Ubuntu Summit, and upcoming release, joining forces with Playtron. The development of Lutris has slowed down a bit during the last few months. There are a few good reasons for that. The day after Scale 21X ended, Playtron made an announcement about Playtron OS, a Linux-based operating system to provide a console-like experience on all devices with support for a multitude of storefronts. Their website showed their affiliation with many open-source projects related to gaming: WineSap OS, Chimera OS, Open Gamepad UI, Heroic Games Launcher, and Box 64. Having a console-like experience on Linux was something I've always wanted, but building a full OS for Lutris was always out of scope, given the effort required to maintain it. Maintaining the Lutris project is already quite a substantial load, and we wouldn't have the manpower to drive such a project. But with joining forces with other projects and getting support from investors, that's a whole different story. My plan was to find a job after the Scale Expo, ending a period of only relying on savings and donations. I put aside the other prospects I had and got in touch with Playtron. A few weeks after, I was joining their team as a developer to work mostly on the UI side of things, with most of the rest of the post just going to what Playtron is, what they're trying to do, and some conferences he's going to be attending at some point in the near future. One part I do want to talk about: There have also been some concerns about Playtron being a crypto/Web3 project. While the first partner to ship Playtron power devices, Sui, is a Web3 company, Playtron itself is not. It's a vendor-neutral solution to anyone who wishes to make Linux-powered gaming consoles, whether it's a Web3 company, a hardware manufacturer, or just someone who wants to repurpose an old build as a living room console. Obviously, the company does have a lot of ties to crypto, and they would very much like you to get involved with the crypto stuff. There's no doubt about that. But he is correct that yes, as I said, it is not required, it is optional, it is a vendor-neutral solution, but it's a vendor-neutral solution funded by crypto companies. Please, be critical of Playtron, be critical of the investors, be critical of other things they're getting involved in, be critical of the Sui Play 0x1 or whatever it's called, and the Sui token and all the nonsense surrounding that device. But at the end of the day, FOSS developers, like everybody else, need money to live. And many FOSS developers don't make enough of the project itself. Lutris is just one of them. Not everybody gets the opportunity to work at their dream company to work on a project they love. A lot of people lose the opportunity to keep working on FOSS because they need to go and get a job at some other company, whether it be a development firm or anything else, just to be able to pay their bills. I've seen Reddit posts criticizing Matthew Commandon and criticizing Lutris, saying that Lutris is now involved in crypto, which is obviously not true at all if you read more than literally just the top comments on Reddit of other people who didn't read the post. If you actually look at what's happening, I don't think Lutris, Heroic Games Launcher, Box 64, Chimera OS, or any of the other projects that are getting paid by Playtron are doing anything wrong. They are doing what is in their best interest to develop the project that not enough people are willing to donate to, that not enough people want to support, that they can work on it at the rate that people want them to work on it. Direct your criticism to the correct people, not to the developers who are just trying to find any way they can keep a project going. But let me know your thoughts down below. I'm sure somebody is going to disagree with me, so feel free to start the argument in the comment section down below. It's great for engagement. If you like the video, go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out our Patreon, Scribes, and Liberapay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I'm probably not going to run this thing, but hey, congrats to Matthew for finding a way to actually fund the project.
Like this.